Thank you. Is that, I hear feedback. Oh, we're okay now? Good afternoon. This is the City of Liberty Lake Parks and Arts Commission. Today is Monday, September 9th at 4 p.m. Calling the meeting to order, and we'll start out with our roll call. Commissioner Nancy Hill, present. David Heimbaugh.
Here.
Laura Frank.
Present.
Noelle Otterson is going to be here in a minute. She just left to get on Zoom. Katie Ferris and John Bear are absent today. And Bob Schneidmiller.
Here.
We have our adjunct commissioner, Joni Hay.
Present.
Good to see you, Joni. And drum roll, please, our new student commissioner, Audrey White.
Present.
Welcome.
Thank
We're so
you.
excited about having you on board. Really excited. We love the student perspective. And today we have staff Tate Hunter, Jen Camp, and Mark McAvoy. Thanks, everyone, for coming. First up on the agenda is the approval of the August 5, 2024 meeting minutes. Has everyone had a chance to review those minutes? There should be in front of you in your packet. And is there any edits or changes? If not, a motion to approve.
A motion to approve.
Second that.
It's moved by Laura, seconded by David. Any comments or discussion on the motion? If not, all in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Show the motion is carried. The minutes are approved unanimously. Moving on to citizen comments. I don't see anyone in the room. Is there anyone online? No, no citizen comments. All right. We'll move on to the action items. The first is our final discussion, final review on the budget and strategic plan. Since we've last met, Laura gave the report at the city council meeting, and then I attended, along with Jen, the workshop that the city council had on funding of public arts. And within those meetings, and along with the workshop we had with Parks and Arts prior to that, the council has an interest in certain things, us being more aggressive in our ask. They want to see the art, they welcome the art, they look forward to the art, and of course, any improvements in our park system. So as we discussed our budget last time, we had the goat statue tentatively in our 2026 budget. And part of that because we had chosen Town Hall Square, and that master plan is under review, but we do have the market there. And I was wondering if, as a commission, we want to consider possibly moving the goat statue up to 2025. Just adding that, not subtracting anything from 2025, since the council does have an interest in having something signature to Liberty Lake, which we're known for the goats for our environmentally friendly weed control, I guess I would call it. And probably if we did something in Town Hall Square where the farmers market is, it would be a nice welcome to our community and extended community that frequent the market. And I'm imagining it still would be the market location since it's separate from the obvious undeveloped part of the park. So I wondered if there was any interest or discussion on that, or adding something else to our 2025 agenda that might fall into the lines of what the council has expressed an interest in. I don't know how many of you had a chance to watch the recording of the workshop that Parks and Arts had with council. That was in July, I guess it was early July, and heard about some of that discussion. I know we did have a summary of it and talked about it a little bit of our meeting. And I know, Laura, you heard some of the remarks from council in regards to your recent report. So any thoughts on that, or potentially doing something else with our 2025 budget?
I would support moving it up into 2025. I think just one comment is maybe looking at putting together a schedule just to kind of make sure we're staying on track for milestones, because this is a much more aggressive budget than we've done in the past, and we are a small group. So just making sure that we have a pretty solid plan to be able to execute all these, I think would be beneficial. With that, I would support adding the statues to that and the market location.
Now, Mark, remind me, is the budget passed right around the first week in December? Is that when we would know what our funding approval was?
So excuse me, our plan is to have the budget on the agenda the first December meeting, whatever that date is, to give ourselves a fallback of the second December meeting, so that we can meet the statutory requirement. So it would be ideally that first December meeting for adoption.
Okay, so if that's the case and we developed a plan, then perhaps, Laura, we could look at, the end of the year, releasing the call to artists and kind of getting all that in motion rather than, waiting half a year and then having to panic.
Well, and I think based on our experience this year in terms of the response and maybe different strategies of how we reach out to some local artists, I think end of the year would certainly be appropriate, especially with a roundabout art piece in there as well. I think those both are pretty large and aggressive projects. So
Right.
Certainly erring on caution in terms of timing to make sure that we're prepared for it.
And didn't you receive some input where there might be a way of enlarging our pool of artists to send out the agreement to?
I did. So some of the feedback I got on this last call to artists for a statue was that, it's a pretty big time investment for them to develop proposals for projects. So instead of going for a call to artists, that we do a call for qualifications. And so then they'd be able to submit samples of their work or styles that might be appropriate for the project that we're requesting. And then we would select based on that. So it'd be almost more of a commission-based piece. But with that, you could pick, say, your 3 favorite submissions and offer a small stipend for them to develop the project. Or the other alternative that had been suggested is that if you know of artists in the community that you, as a commission, we decide we really like this work, we like the style, that you just go directly to those individual artists, again, more on a commission base, to ask for a proposal. So there's a couple different ways, but I think the request for qualification versus the request for proposal would certainly give us a larger pool to select from.
Mm-hmm. I know we have the Liberty Lake Together art. I wonder if we should, I'm just brainstorming with myself here, create another category that we could fall into, like the goat statue could fall into, and maybe something else that was Liberty Lake signature or Liberty Lake something that, or we just start with a goat and then see where we go from there, or.
I think we could you can certainly do a different theme. So if we as a commission decide that we want to continue with the Liberty Lake Together theme, that would be a separate project from the goat. The goat would,
Right.
If you're looking for something that is appropriate for the farmer's market specifically, then, that is a good theme for that area. Or we as a commission decide that maybe the Liberty Lake Together themed artwork is not something that we want to continue on, but
I love the Liberty Lake Together.
I like it as well. And
I'm
I
just
think
thinking
that-
about adding another category, if you will, if the council is wanting to fund a little bit more.
Yeah, and I agree with you. The themes that seem to repeat in that conversation were goats and golf carts.
Yeah.
So if you wanted to pick a theme, one of the artists gave me some feedback on this, saying even though the Liberty Lake Together logo is pretty specific, it still felt too broad.
Oh,
And so there's to create a proposal. So again, that's where you look at, well, if you're basing it on qualifications, then there's a little more detail that can be hashed out in the proposal phase. So that is one thing that I took away from it is maybe by making our calls too broad, because we don't want to hinder the artistic process, that we're almost hindering it by, by having it being so open-ended that they don't even know where to start in terms of, what we might be looking for. So,
Right, right. Well, that's nice that they're asking for the clarification and providing us with the feedback. So hopefully we can get a bigger pool as we move forward. That'd be a nice problem to have.
yeah, no,
More,
for sure.
more choices, right?
For sure.
Aubrey, just so you'll know that, yeah, every year about this time, we started in June and July, we kind of set the budget, and we really have to do a nice firm budget for the next year. And then we just kind of have some placeholders for the following years. And then as we move those up, we kind of finalize. And the Liberty Lake Together Art, are you familiar with that at all?
Yes, I am.
Yeah. So, that's one of our big categories, which is super cool. And then we have some of the other items. So, what do you guys want to do with, we need to finalize the budget today. Do you want to move the goats up, or is there something else you want to add to or subtract from as you look at that? I think we have all the categories in place now by adding the fireworks and winter glow and the maintenance. What do you think?
I think we could move it forward. I'm for that. I believe we can move that forward to 2025.
Okay.
So for the sake of drafting this, are we duplicating it in the goat statue in 25 and 26 for 40,000?
Well, that's why I don't want to lose that placeholder for the following year, but I don't know if I want to call it a goat statue. That's why I was kind of thinking about a different category. We,
You just call it community art.
Yeah.
I would
Community centric.
community art, and then strike the location, since we had noted in their location.
yeah.
That gives you more flexibility.
Because basically, we're adding another category that the council's gonna see, and
Yeah.
they asked us to be more aggressive, so we're adding another category. I
Yeah.
like that, David. I like the community art.
Then do you want to leave goat statue specifically for 26 or change it to
Let's
community art?
Change it to
Yeah.
Both of
community
them?
art.
Yeah, and then do we want, on the community art category in 2025, then do we want to note that that would be a goat
I
statue?
would put in the notes, tentatively planning goat statue at Town Square. I'd like to make a request on the budget as well, for a holdover on the historical outlook, just
Okay.
because we don't have a solid plan yet or delivery. I just worry that it's going to, as we are quickly diving into fall, that it's going to be difficult to execute before the end of the year.
Okay, so we're adding that same line item in 24 down in the 25.
As a
correct? As a
carryover.
carryover.
And if somehow, I don't know if we can do this in the budget, what the budget needs to look like, but if we could have the two carryover items, kind of maybe a space between them, so they'll know that those are already in this year's budget, and that we're just carrying the funds over, so it doesn't look like we are asking for the stars, the moon, and the sun, and
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I guess this question for you, Mark, if,
we're bold to carry over.
and it's later on the agenda, but if council approves the artist agreements prior to the budget approval, and we know that there will be a down payment, can we adjust those numbers before that final approval, or once we submit it, it's done for the carryover at least?
There's no reason why you couldn't adjust them.
Okay, just trying to give it the best
Yeah, I mean,
possible number.
yes, more precision, the better.
Okay.
So,
I'm just wondering if we do get the council approval to move forward with the Liberty Lake Together artwork,
Mhm.
we had it structured where there's a down
Yeah.
payment, and so
Yeah.
that would be 50% of the budget.
a
So then
down
we
payment
could-
this year?
It
Yeah.
it
Oh, I
would be
see.
this year, so then we could remove that from the total that's in the carryover for next year. Just so
Oh,
we're
yeah.
being more accurate
Yeah.
with what that number
Yeah,
would
instead
look
of the
like.
whole number.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And same thing with the historical, if we end up, I spoke, well,
Yeah.
I don't want to jump ahead of the other update, but there's still a small potential that it could, but
Yeah.
for budgeting purposes, I'd like to to have it in there. So
We'll just need to know that sooner than later, once
Yes.
everything's final before council.
Yes.
So, yeah.
So once they approve the artist agreement, then we will know. Okay, but if there's some way that we can, on the tentative part, if we could bold that so they know that it's a
Yeah.
carryover or however you wanna show it, so it's kind of sort of separate from everything else. Okay, so what I'm hearing is, we're gonna go ahead and drop down the historical outlook also to a carryover, along with the Liberty Lake Art Together at the Kramer Parkway. And that will add a new category starting in 2025, which is community art. And we'll start 2025 with the goat statue in the tentative location of Town Hall Square. And then we'll carry that community art category through in 26 and 27. Should we just carry it up through those other years with the same 40,000 that we started with? For the goat? That's what we had.
yeah, because we can always fill in the details as we
Yeah,
develop the budget.
just as a placeholder. So,
So add community art also to 27.
yep, all the way down.
And then in 26, you want me to strike the town square specification there?
Yes, and I want you to, instead of goat statue, that would be community art.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then in the notes under community art in 2025, you'd have goat statue, possible location of Town Hall Square. Okay. Anything else we want to do to the budget before we finish this up?
Seeing none.
So we'll need a motion then to the changes that we discussed.
I move to approve the amended items in today regarding community art. And move to approve the budget to be submitted to city council.
A second.
We have a motion based on our discussion to amend the budget and by David and a second by Joni. Any questions or discussions on the motion? Is Noelle with us?
She is.
Okay.
Oh, she was.
Nope, she just here. Okay, seeing none, we'll vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, please show the motion is carried unanimously. We have a budget. Okay,
And Nancy, just to confirm, that date is December 3rd for the first December meeting,
and the second would be,
17th.
so by the 17th, we would know for sure.
Yes.
Okay, so after that, we can, well, because we're gonna make an outline of a plan. And then we won't implement the plan until December 18th. Okay, all right, where's my agenda? Next on the agenda, the Kramer Liberty Lake Together Artists Agreement. Laura.
Yeah, so a draft artist agreement, I sent it over to Jen for the Liberty Lake Together artwork that would be at the intersection of Country Vista and Kramer Parkway. Legal had some feedback changes were made, and I believe with the approval of commission, we're good to submit it to council for approval to move forward with the project
Next Tuesday's meeting.
next Tuesday.
Yep.
That's the 17th.
Correct.
And just again, for clarification, the artist would receive and sign after council approves.
Yes.
Perfect.
When the artist agreement goes up for council on the 17th, Mark, is that just a yay or nay, or can there be discussion on it?
I'm sorry, say again.
When the artist agreement shows up on the December 17th council agenda for approval, is that a discussion item or just a yay or nay?
So it's a action item, which means that through the course of their consideration, there's discussion available. We would need to move it to the off of the general consent agenda onto the action item agenda so that there can be discussion.
Is that what you would do? I just wondered if there would be
So
discussion.
typically our process is if something is budgeted and planned, it goes on consent.
Okay, so this would go on consent.
Yes, so
Okay.
there, which would eliminate the opportunity for them to have discussion on the item in particular. Now, at the meeting, they could move to amend the agenda and move it off, which sometimes they do.
Okay,
But-
okay. I just wondered what to expect.
Yeah, so I guess the question is, do you want there to be discussion? Then I would recommend keeping it on consent.
Okay. And we have to vote to move the revised artists agreement to, I see a vote there, to present to council for approval.
So I'll move to approve the artist agreement for the Kramer Parkway Liberty Lake Together artwork.
So, second that.
It's been moved and approved. Any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Nay? All right, please show the motion has passed unanimously. Moving on to the next agenda item, which is the vote on the Trailhead Map Artist Agreement. And Laura, you have an update on that?
I do. So after our meeting last month, we left it with having a conversation with the Trailhead staff, just to make sure that everyone was on board with the proposed piece. When I met with them, their feedback was that their preference is something more art themed, and that was the original architect's intent with that portion of the building. And so in my conversation, what we came out of was, could we still have a whimsical map, but make it more trailhead centric? So it would be a whimsical map of the course. To do this, I think it is fair to offer, well, one, if the commission wants to continue forward with the artist that was selected, everyone liked the style. My recommendation for a proposed path forward is that we enter an artist agreement with her, and that we also offer her a $500 stipend to redevelop her proposal that would be a trailhead-centric whimsical map versus a City of Liberty Lake whimsical map. That being said, we do have that artwork in our back pocket. So if there is another location in the future that we say, you know, we really do want a Liberty Lake map, or maybe we want to print it or do something with it, that option still exists to work with her on that specific map. But for this particular location, understanding that it is the art wall that is directly outside of the pro shop, when you're walking down that end of the hallway, your intent is golf related, to move forward with having her redevelop the proposal for a trailhead whimsical map.
I have a question. So
Mhm.
Trailhead being what it is, what all can we really put on that map? I mean, there's really nothing out there.
It would be a
Nine holes.
golf-centric piece. So, I mean, we could certainly look at, are there outlying things like the trail that goes around, or other items that we could loosely incorporate into it? Because you do have goats down along that path sometimes, so you could have that incorporated. You have the restaurant, you have the community room there. So there are other things that we could try to tie into it, but it would be more of a rendering of the trail map there.
So it showed the outline of the course and maybe the Fallen Heroes course on the side. And just that general.
Yeah, and my understanding after my conversation there was that when the architect, and I wasn't part of these discussions, so I don't have any background on it, but that each art wall kind of had an intent. So you have the restaurant area where we engaged with the high school to have the student art. Then you have the center, which is really community based. That's where the Rotary Room is. That would be more community art centric. And then the wall right outside Trailhead would be golf. And so that was his understanding. And I think there was, I'd say from a commission standpoint, I think engaging our stakeholders in earlier, and that's something that we've discussed, probably would have been beneficial and brought some of these things to light sooner in the process. That being said, I don't think it's a wash. I think we still have a very qualified, talented artist that can produce a really nice piece and still stay in line with the whimsical map theme that we had selected.
It's interesting that you pointed out that we could still possibly utilize the design that she already put forward. And one of the things that came up in the workshop with Parks and Arts is from one of the councilmen is they were talked about an art district or something like that, which is not overly practical here because we don't really have a downtown core per se. But we could use something like that whimsical map to create an art map and also have things like City Hall and the library and stuff on it where we could, show where there's a Liberty Lake Together sculpture or student art or a goat or whatever it is, and we could have that map available like at the farmer's market or something and in City Hall, and could be on the website, could be printable. I mean, we could probably have some fun with it in that respect, I would imagine, at some point.
Yeah, and we would just have to consider that when we do, the future years in the budget and, going back and obviously paying for the artwork. But this would be a separate redevelopment of the proposal with that artist that everyone had selected.
And for Audrey, for those of you that don't know, we were gonna have a whimsical map like painted on the wall as you enter the pro shop side of Trailhead, and it was gonna show like our parks and the library and City Hall and just some stuff in town and make it fun and whimsical. But now, we're talking about just having a little thumbnail of just basically drilling down to just the Trailhead Golf Course out of respect for the pro shop and what their anticipation had been out of the building. So what are your thoughts on that? Bob, what do you?
I think we're limiting ourselves too much. I disagree. I appreciate the work, but I think we're limiting ourselves. So if we all respect, if the golf pro wants to be on the commission, we could certainly use them. But in the meantime, I think that's more our responsibility rather than a golf pro shop gentleman telling us or advising us what we should be doing as far as art goes. I mean, the course is very small. You can get a rendition off of your golf scorecard. There's nothing out there other than 9 holes. And I think my thought is if we limit it to just a golf theme, then we're taking away from what, as for now, that is the city's newest centerpiece attraction. I think it'd be better if somebody were to come in, that they see what the city has to offer rather than a whimsical map of the golf course. So I'm not against it. I'm just thinking that we're cutting ourselves short.
Laura, is it possible to layer the two together where the focal point would be the golf course and then the other parts of the map would be on the outskirts?
Oh, I like that.
So you could still get like a little teaser taste of the city, but really it's about the.
I believe
9
you
holes.
could. The limitation there is just
Space.
real estate,
Oh.
right? How much you're able to then detail of the city while putting that pop out of the art. So this is something that would be part of that $500 stipend of giving her the feedback and saying, hey, we want to redevelop this a little bit to try to, keep all parties happy. And I think one of the feedbacks from him was just that, and not to take away from you're there and you can see what else the city has to offer, is that, well, they're there for the golf. Would that not be more appropriate at City Hall or a future City Hall or a library or other community areas that more people are accessing other than golfers? Because most of your population going there are going for the golf. Whereas the library, you have families and other people engaging. So,
Good point.
there's, I mean, you can go either way, honestly. There's good and valid points to both sides of it. So that's, I've, as it says on the agenda, I've gone ahead and drafted an artist agreement to be able to move forward with the project. And really, it sounds like we need to narrow in on what we want to do, offer the stipend for the redevelopment if we're still all in agreement with the artist that was selected. So I can certainly ask her, hey, what do you think this might look like, having a zoom in of the golf course, but still having a lot of the city features?
Mhm.
Is that possible with the real estate that's available, or, you know, kind of bounce it around and see if she has any thoughts on it, but.
Mhm.
Well, I think that the best place would be where the most people will see. In other words, not, not specific, but if they happen to be walking by or something like that, because that's the way people are going to see it.
Is Noel on?
Shall we move to have the artist or proceed with the artist contract?
Well, I mean, Laura, if we do approve the stipend and we give her a directive to see if she could slant it a little bit more towards golf with some of the input from Joni and David's concerns, and then we'll see what it comes up with. I mean, we're not approving art today.
Right.
We're
We would
only
not be
saying we
approving.
like that artist
Right.
and we're willing to pay her a stipend to kind
Play
of,
around with the concept a little bit.
Yeah.
more.
and I'm sure you'll be good at having that conversation with her. So what we're looking for today is a motion to send the artist agreement to council for approval. We're not approving any art. And in that, is it in that agreement, is the stipend? No, that's
Stipend
separate,
is separate from that.
but we don't have to have council approval for that.
It is part of the entire project. It would be better to have that approved by council, but we can do that easily next Tuesday because it's part of a whole project.
Okay,
We don't piece out.
okay.
And a general reminder, Laura, we'll need to get them set up with billing accounts beforehand, so they can
Correct.
invoice the
So-
city.
Yeah, so on the Liberty Lake Together, because it's two artists collaborating, we've made the agreement with one artist and then
Yep.
she will subcontract the
Yep.
other. So we'll get her set up, and then the Trailhead
Perfect.
artist is already set up
I'll
because we've worked with her. in
Shoot
the
you an
past.
email tomorrow and loop in AP because we have new folks in that seat, so.
Okay, we're gonna need a motion to move the artist's agreement forward to council. As presented.
I so move. That we present the artist agreement to city council for approval.
A second.
Okay, it's been moved by David and seconded by Bob to move the artist agreement for the Trailhead Map project onto city council for approval. Any discussion on the motion?
No discussion on the motion, but I do have a quick question, Jen. When council approves the budget, so we have the project total, which is higher than what the contract would be for.
Mhm.
The $500, I'm assuming, would be able to come out of that without having to go,
Correct.
right? Because
Mhm.
it's approved in
It's
the
all part of
budget.
that one project. Yes.
Perfect, thank you.
That's why we add on contingency.
I know, that's why I was like, I just wanted to make sure that, when you said that was part of the whole project has already been approved. The artist agreement is just for that specific portion of
Yeah,
that budget.
probably
line
what
item.
I'll do is when I write the artist agreement, I'll write the artist agreement for the amount of the total project plus the $500 regarding a stipend. I'll just make a comment in there for the grand total.
Okay,
And then
I didn't know
grand
if it was better to have her just submit an invoice for the,
And then she can submit the invoice after that time.
Okay.
As well as get going on the 50% or whatever is
Perfect.
needed in that.
okay.
Great, thank you. Okay, we have a motion on the floor to send the artist agreement for the Trailhead Map project onto city council. Don't think there's any more discussion, so all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Please show the motion has passed unanimously. Okay, moving on to our unfinished business, and Laura, you're in the hot seat. I know we discussed that a little bit, but what have you got for us on the Pavilion Historical Outlook?
Yeah, so I met with or spoke with the Historical Society representative, and they indicated that the approximate dimension is 8 feet long. So it fits within that area that was targeted in Pavilion Park. they're finalizing all that, so I don't want to do anything moving forward with the stand until we know exactly what that top piece is going to look like. And so that's why I had requested the carryover, because I feel like we're just getting into that season where it's going to be more difficult. They are at this point, highlighting the history of the park, how it was built, the significance of the structures within the park, and then, had requested maybe holding off on mural information until we decide, are we wrapping around the building? Are we doing the ticket booth? What else are we doing with the mural? And then that could either be a separate little substand, or we could re-explore the QR code where they could just scan it and direct to a webpage and have that developed. And that would be a separate budget discussion. I believe there was some concern about wrapping just because of equipment and, honey buckets.
We
staging for
actually,
events.
just to comment on that, we were actually looking at that, staff and I, during the symphony this last couple weekends ago, and we could move the porta potties.
Okay,
The way we were looking at everything, and now that all we order are the ADAs, they're much more stout and less likely to tip, which is why we like to have them up against it, but these ones are so stout, we could push them out into the grass a ways. They still might be in the general area, and I don't know how the artist would feel about that. But I mean, ultimately, we could wrap them around to the back of the building. That,
Yeah.
I think what I'm saying is we can make
That's
the
not
portable restrooms work. So after looking at it again,
okay.
and talking to staff, we feel confident that you could wrap that side if you so chose. We do have doors, but
Perfect. And then the only other question I had with that, so that's where that piece of it's at. And then the other portion of that is cleaning out the landscaping that's in the bed there. So is that something that we would want contracted out? Is that something?
no, our staff can do that.
Okay.
And they just want to know when.
I know.
They're ready to cut.
Well, and that's the question of, in terms of timing, if we know it's going there.
And honestly, those trees need to go. We were looking at that as well. There are three
Yes.
cryptomeria trees which are not thriving anyway. So I propose as staff, we just take them out anytime. They need to come out regardless.
Okay.
And then the only other shrubs are some spirea, like 4 spirea shrubs in the front, and they're like a weed. You can cut them down and they'll just grow back or whatever.
Well, if you guys are comfortable.
Yeah.
Removing it,
You're
then,
okay anytime.
If things do come together, then it's that
It
much
might help
easier
them.
to,
See
Try
it fit too, if those trees are
Mhm.
gone.
yeah.
Okay.
That's a great idea.
So that's the status of the historical outlook.
And then we've taken care of that on the budget to carry it over just in case. So I think that'll be good. And then, like you say, if we do wrap the mural or the ticket booth, or maybe there's an opportunity by the ticket booth to talk about the mural, or, that's a whole discussion for another day.
Correct.
Anything else on the historical outlook? Any questions? Okay. Next is the CEC project proposal. And Jen, are you gonna?
Yes. So, this is my first take at a project proposal form for the commission. So please give me your input, good or bad.
And the CEC is the Community
Community.
Engagement Commission, if
Yep.
you're not familiar.
And so what we did was, had them fill out the form, which she then basically said, see attached documentation. But what we're doing is presenting the information for the proposed project by the individual or the group to the commission for discussion before we bring them to a next meeting to actually present. So the idea for tonight is, do you want to move forward with this project? So I did send this out earlier, so there was hopefully plenty of time for everybody to review it. Basically, they're wanting to partner with the Parks and Arts Commission. The CEC wants to partner with the Parks and Arts Commission to produce a video. And in her description, she goes through what it would entail. I don't know if this is anything that is of interest to the commission, but I told her I would put it on here. Next steps would be if the commission was interested in pursuing this project with them, I would invite her to the October meeting to present to the commission with her idea. have an opportunity to ask questions. So this is simply a step two. Do you want to move forward? It doesn't need a vote. It's just simply is this a project that the commission thinks they would be interested in? That I will say the timeline, they would like to have it done before December of 2024.
I think it's a great idea. And I would throw my hat in to be the narrator of it. I already said it. But David's got a great voice too.
I guess my question would be, I mean, I should have looked at the Community Engagement Commission, their mission and purpose and stuff before, but they're the ones that are engaging with the public, and I think it's a great idea to put the video together, but I don't know that helping put a video together, is that in the scope of our authority, or would we just want to serve as a consultant? Do we want to hear her presentation to see where we might fit in? I mean, they're asking in here for a collaboration.
Yeah,
Which
and I
makes-
don't know exactly how that fits with Parks and Arts, so she kind of collaborate, or she kind of explained that in here, but not,
Yeah,
it's not real clear. I will say, if there is interest in this beyond the Parks and Arts Commission, you can let me know, and I'm happy to forward that to her and get the
Yeah.
example being you, if you wanted to be involved in the project, I'm sure they would love to have some help. So it could be that if there isn't interest as a whole, there could still be interest personally as a citizen, and I'm sure they would love the help.
well, we have several individuals on this commission that know a lot about the history, from the development of the mural and from, Friends of William Park and all that. So I personally could see us potentially consulting on it, but I don't know that in my mind, I don't know that we would be in the making a video. I mean, we already have our strategic plan set and that's not on it. But consulting, there is a lot of knowledge in this room,
Does the,
way over here.
does the city have a tourism board or anything like that? Because that's what that would fall
Mhm.
under more. So, I mean, if you think about it, Spokane has one, Coeur d'Alene has a video.
Yeah, it's a great.
You
to have a
know,
video.
and they're amazing, especially if you're visiting the area and you want to know what the area
Mhm.
has to offer. But yeah, I do agree with your point.
What were you gonna say, Mark?
I was gonna say, we use Visit Spokane as our tourism bureau. We don't have
Right.
an independent one, but.
That's what I was
Yeah.
speaking of, yeah.
You know, I think it's a good idea to do that, and I think David would be an excellent
Mhm.
person for that. My history with Liberty Lake goes back many, 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 many years. And so there was a time where I actually worked up here when it was just a lawn seed farm. With irrigation pipe, ran combine, various other things. So I'd like to help
Mhm.
wherever you have questions.
Well, do we want community engagement to come and present? And I mean, we're just reading a few words on a piece of paper. We don't know what they're really asking of us specifically, I guess. Or do we just wanna toss it back and say, if you want to interview any of the people here with historical knowledge?
I think that's a better option.
Well, and I think we need more information. Video production at that scale is very time consuming and expensive. And I think to Laura's point of having it, hiring the videographer and then doing production and all the editing. That's a pretty tight schedule, I think.
Mhm.
Uh-huh.
This,
Well,
yeah.
And Olaf, you may want to consider having that invitation extended for after the first of the year. And the reason I say that is because this project isn't currently budgeted.
Oh,
It is, they've proposed it in their 2025 budget, but it's not currently funded.
and we just set our strategic plan, which doesn't include this, so.
I was curious too, it doesn't say here if they're looking for collaboration in terms of funding or just knowledge base.
Probably a little both. would be my guess after talking with her.
Is it
So-
possible? Oh, go ahead, Lauren.
Just we could ask that question. They've proposed an amount in their 2025 budget proposal for this project that doesn't indicate that they would be looking for other funding sources, but that question can be asked and clarified. But it's, again, it's not currently budgeted for 2024. So it's being requested as a funded item in their 2025 budget.
Maybe, before we go too far down the road, would it be appropriate, Jen, I mean, this is our first time using this
Mhm.
process, to ask for a little more meat in what they're asking, what they want from us?
Would you like me to invite them to the next meeting, or do you want me just to reach out and get a little bit more detail?
What's the preference, folks? Do you want them to come and where we just ask them questions directly? I doubt we'll have a big agenda for the next meeting. Because we've now set the budget and we'll have a few updates on a couple things, but
Or I can follow up and get a little bit more feedback from her on their thoughts as a group and present back in October.
Well, maybe we provide them with some clarification on what we need to know.
Yeah.
Basically, what
Yeah.
went where, who, how much.
I could present them with a list of questions.
One of those questions should be, is it Audrey?
yes.
Does the school have an audio visual program that's looking for opportunities to do projects like this?
I know Ridgeline has quite a few videography, including photography, like programs and things. And I could probably talk to our teacher about it, and I could maybe reach out to a few of the other schools in our area to see if they have anything as well.
So that may be an avenue may want to explore
Yeah.
as well.
Yeah.
Oh, how about this is a suggestion? Whoever has questions that they feel should be asked of the CEC, why don't you shoot those questions to me? I will compile them as a whole and ask for clarification further. And then depending on that, Nancy and I always meet for agenda reviews to set the next meeting agenda. We can discuss about putting them on or going forward regardless, whichever direction. Does that work?
Yes.
When do you want the questions by? It's better if we set it.
Oh, yeah. September 9th, how about, let's just say September 30th.
Okay.
I don't know what day of the week that is, but let's say by September
Is
30th.
that soon enough to get them to them and get answers?
I think
I
so.
don't know when their meetings are.
Third Wednesday.
Third Wednesday, and we're
The next one's the
we're-
18th.
Does the CEC have their own budget?
Yes and no. So they don't have their own budget like the Parks and Arts Commission has its own budget, but they propose projects for the budget that either get approved or not. For example, last year, they proposed having a budget for different mailings and engagements within Splash and those kinds of things that were funded.
Just in case.
And so they have done the same thing for the 2025 budget. They proposed 4 or 5 projects, whatever the number is,
Robert, yeah.
with fixed dollar amounts associated with them. And this is one of them.
All right, let's have those questions to Jen by September 20th, if you don't mind, whatever questions you have, and then she can send those to the chair and get clarification, and then hopefully we'll have that by our next meeting and we can figure it out from there.
Would-
Okay.
Would it be, if I might just ask a quick question on the project information form, because when I looked at this and it says, just collaborate on the planning, development and production. Like that's really, really open-ended, which is why it's leading to questions. Would it make sense on here? Cause you have it, funding support, funding support
Yeah.
involvement, like check boxes where they have to answer yes or no. So then clearly, is it
Yeah,
funding that's required? Is it just
yeah.
time,
Yeah,
consulting? I'm just trying to think as we go through this process more in the future, so we're not having to go back and ask more questions and then, just lengthen that timeline of being able to decide if it's
Sure.
something that we want to have presented.
I mean, I love that Jen developed this form because it
No,
would have
it's
helped us in
fantastic.
the future. So yeah, if we
Yeah,
can
no, it's
streamline the
fantastic.
form to get us the information we needed, that's.
Yeah, please, if you
fantastic.
have thoughts on this form, this is a work in progress, so send me your ideas.
No, I think
to
it's
make it-
fantastic. And you have all of those items
Yeah.
there. So it's more just a force.
It's more like
there
you're
now.
expected to write an essay, answer an essay question instead of
Yeah.
check the box. So I could definitely make it simpler for
Yeah.
them to fill out. Yeah.
No, I think this is a
Okay.
fantastic forum and it'll be hugely beneficial. And
Yeah, I can think of a few times where it would have been really nice
Yeah.
to have. Okay, moving on to our next agenda item, the town hall update, the town hall, which is tomorrow, September 10. Jen, did you have something on that?
We were asked to provide 2 commissioners and a table with, whatever we want to show at that table, and Commissioner Hay and Chair Hill actually volunteered. So we will be there tomorrow evening from 6 to 7. Please join us if you can. We'll answer questions regarding Parks and Arts projects. I'll have business cards at our table. We have a 3-fold, big, tall board with magnets and lots of photos printed and laminated and ready to go. So we'll have a nice display with our logo and everything. So I'll field any notes and questions that might come up during, if anyone's interested in how that goes, if there are conversations. And then at 7, it steers to a council, Q&A discussion.
Yeah, so the second half, starting at 7, is more of a traditional town hall where you have like a panel discussion where the elected officials are on the panel and then the audience is there and asked to participate. It'll be moderated, so we'll try to keep it on topic. But essentially, the topic is transparency in local government. And we have 3 specific questions that we want to get some feedback on. So that'll be starting at 7. The 6 to 7 slot, as Jen just talked about, is kind of a drop in, drop out, open house kind of mingle and ask questions session. So that's where the 4 commissions will have their tables and be able to ask questions and recruit for open seats if you want to do that. So
Yes, and I will have some blank application forms available in case anybody's interested.
Because we have our second adjunct position available.
So we'll have a welcome table up front that will have the commission applications, so that'll free up a little more tables here. Thanks.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, we're gonna have 2 commissions per table, because we do have limited tables.
Oh, I see. Okay.
and the most important thing is charcuterie. That will be available. Yes, yes.
As soon as I saw that, I volunteered, Mark. I mean. All right, thank you. Next on our agenda is the Public Art Fund update from the September 3rd council workshop. I attended it, Jen attended it, Mark, of course, was there. And were you going to give the update on that, or does Mark want to do that, or?
I'll let Mark.
Put you on the spot.
So, yeah, so really what we were trying to do then and have been asked to come back and give some specific recommendations is trying to get council to kind of give us a framework that ultimately leads to a specific funding mechanism. As you all remember from the July 2nd workshop, there was the encouragement to, be bold and do all of these things, which you've talked about even in part tonight. And so in order to be able to do that, there needs to be some more dedicated funding. And that's really what this discussion is designed to kind of get to. As important as that is the implementation piece. And if you were at the presentation last week, you heard me say, we're not minimizing implementation. We have to discuss implementation, but we want to get some clarity on the funding piece. And so October 1st will be our next opportunity to bring a couple of recommendations back to council so that we can hopefully clarify that and then move forward with either putting it into an ordinance or a set of financial policies so it's codified and then can be followed. And then you have a funding source annually that you can count on to be able to fund pieces of public art. And moving beyond that, asking a question, and maybe this is a Laura question as being most plugged into this. I think part of this discussion at some point needs to be, what is the capacity of the commission, right? So what can you do? And, you know, each piece can be more or less valued, but how many projects can you manage in a year? I don't think that's been discussed at this point. So that's an important question to understand.
No, and Nancy and I discussed that a little bit as we were looking at the budget and being more bold and aggressive. It's a balance of what we can reasonably execute. So,
Right.
um,
And so I'm not expecting an answer right now,
No.
but that's something definitely to
no,
think
for
about
sure.
as we
You
move
can only
forward.
be
Yeah.
so bold.
Right,
Next,
right.
next year will be a good test of that.
Yes.
Well, one reason, Mark, we were asking about when the budget is approved is, you know, several of us need to get together and kind of set up a timeline of how we're going to execute the projects that we've been given the funding for and make a schedule versus what we've done in the past where it hasn't been so overwhelming, just kind of get to it as we can. We need a real plan in place with dates to get an artist agreement out and things like that. And we probably need Laura to train several of us on these artist agreements and call to artists because a lot of it has fallen on you, Laura, and we're grateful for your expertise in that. But that is a very good question. And like you said, Jen, next year will be a test if the budget we're submitting is approved.
Right. And I think one of the positive aspects of the discussion as we've been having it, and this may be different than in past practice, I'm not 100% sure. Based on some of the discussion, I think I understand what the past practice is, but this would give you, you know, you have a dedicated fund, right? So you would have funds deposited into that fund, and you wouldn't necessarily be tied to the calendar every year, right? So you wouldn't have to use it or lose it, so to speak. It would be a dedicated funding source. And so as projects were identified and executed, you wouldn't be under as much pressure to, you know, do 4 a year or whatever the number is, right? And so that's, I think, a positive outcome of this conversation.
Now, I know when I was listening at the last workshop, you were talking about the percentages of whatever fund or whatever the funding source that council determines, but then the mayor had said we wouldn't be limited to that amount if that didn't, because some of the numbers they were talking about aren't as much as our current annual budget this year, at least, so we could add on to that. Given that scenario, and I'll just use made up numbers, if we had 50,000 was a percentage of something, but we needed 40,000 more, and we were given that by council, would that whole amount carry over like we're talking about?
Yeah, so envision, yes. All of the funds, and one of the positives, again, of this type of approach is all of those dedicated funds would be deposited into the Parks and Arts Fund. And so that balance would carry over.
So it wouldn't matter if it came from sales tax revenue or from the general fund budget or whatever it was. Once it's in our bucket, then that's like a savings account and
Right.
it carries over.
The balance carries over, and then whatever you spend, and whatever is deposited then drops to the bottom line, and you've got that balance that carries over year after year.
And one thing you've probably seen is we usually have leftover because we don't dare not build contingency funds. And we may in our beautification fund only beautify to this amount and not to this amount. So
Sure.
that would take some of the pressure off to know, or if we had a bigger project come, then we knew we had a little bit of money to draw out in additional to whatever the annual ask was.
Yeah, all of that kind of goes into the concept of having that carryover balance. Yes.
Yeah, I think that's fantastic. I had a question also, it's a little off subject, that came up in my head from my background from government is if we get people like STCU has donated for the signal boxes, is that a tax deductible donation?
I presume the answer is yes. I need to do some research and get clarification, but I presume so.
When I was in the county, donations like that would come in, would go into a dedicated line item that could only be used for, say, Parks and Arts projects here.
Right.
And then because of that, because it wasn't dumped into the general fund, because it was in that specific line item, then it was tax deductible, which is a big deal because people don't always think you can make a tax deductible donation to government, but
Right.
And we do have that same line item. It's only donations
Okay.
and that has to come out of that line item.
okay,
We-
so that's,
I'll double check and get you a better answer, but I presume the answer is yes.
yeah, because as we, grow and community businesses and see what we're going to do, then, we may get more potential contributions from business or individuals that want to support what we do.
Yeah, you can foresee that, especially as you're, doing more and or bigger projects. Interest grows, right?
Mhm.
Even, endowment types of donations are possible at that point. So
Right.
you could foresee all of that potentially happening going forward.
Yeah, well, if you could verify that would be great, because I know there is a way to do it. I just don't know if that's what we've done, but it sounds
Sure.
like from what Jen said, that's the case.
Okay.
Okay, any questions on what Marcus said or for Jen on the Public Art Fund? That next meeting, where I'm assuming you're presenting, Mark, your research on this to council, and that is October 1 is the next workshop on that.
Yeah, the September 17th agenda was just too full to try to work this in, so it'll be October 1. As you may remember, council asked for 3 to 5 suggestions.
Mhm.
We're gonna have less than that. That's a lot of effort, but we're gonna put enough work into it to come with 2 viable recommendations and then hopefully work through and get an answer so that we don't have to keep coming back with presentations, because the important thing in our mind is to get the method identified so we can, whether it requires an ordinance or an update to our financial policies or both, we can get started on those pieces because those will require additional work as well. So
And would that be to implement in our 2026 budget? Would that be the goal?
I would say yes, because I don't think we have enough time this year to pivot regardless. But we would likely in that scenario bring financial policies back probably sometime in January. And so that's right at the beginning of the year, but it would be focused on the next budget year in terms of this implementation.
Be nice if we could start the savings account idea in 25.
Yeah, I mean, that's possible. We would, you could catch up with the policies, right? If you have an intent to do something, right, we can catch up with the implementation piece of it.
Oh, just like we are this year.
Yeah,
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. And that's October 1. I know, Jen, you're not able to attend. It would be nice to have someone from the commission at that meeting. I will tell you, I am on an airplane most of that day, but might be able to make it. But if somebody else can just be in the audience, it's not a presentation. This is just a discussion that council's having with it.
And otherwise it will be recorded. So we
Yeah, it will
will
be
have audio,
recorded.
video of it
But
after.
it's always nice to have someone there. If
Yeah.
it's 6 to 7, that's the commitment, October 1. I have it on my calendar. Hopefully I don't have any delays, but just to put that out there if you have an interest.
and I don't know that it's going to be at the 6 o'clock workshop. It depends on the schedule and the other things that are scheduled. It could be at 6, but it could also be at the 7 o'clock workshop. So we'll just have to wait to see the finalized agenda for
So
that.
we'll know that later
Yeah.
this month.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Then you'll let us know when that is, Jen. Okay. All right, moving on. Any more questions on that? No. Moving on to our staff report, Jen.
All right, don't really have any parks facilities updates. Things are winding down in our parks. That's the update. No upcoming events, although I should have put the Liberty Lake Cops and Cruisers. I can't remember the date on that.
Saturday.
Yeah. Then projects, we do have a lot of projects coming up now that we're winding down. It's the time to do the projects. Harvard Trailhead entrance is is still, they're working with permitting on some of those items to get that going forward. I heard the CXT got pushed from September to October. That's the restroom facility, so probably later in this year that will happen. We'll have the Rocky and Pavilion Sports Court resurfacing scheduled on the next Tuesday council agenda for approval. And staff will get those taken care of hopefully this fall, but we're anticipating that project will finish in the spring. They don't think they're gonna get it completely done.
What
this
does that
fall.
mean for the basketball court?
No, it's just the tennis courts
Oh,
and the
okay.
south basketball court at
Like-
Pavilion. No, we're not touching that one.
Wait a minute.
No. We have a pavilion roof that will be happening. It's going on the agenda also next Tuesday for council approval. It's been a while, a long time coming and needs a new roof. Rocky Hill restroom painting, we're working with a contractor to paint the exterior of that restroom. It's starting to fade and chip. Lions Club paver project, staff is meeting with the contractor, I believe this week, for installation the first week of October. And that is going to be, everything's going to be put in place and they will etch in batches. So the pavers will actually get done. We were a little unsure which way it was going to go. But they're actually able to etch the pavers in place. And then future discussions and agenda items, more discussion obviously with potential ordinance update, public art policy review. If you recall, the public art policy was submitted to council in 2019 as a resolution and was adopted as such. It may be time to look at that this winter and maybe early next year and a little bit more detail since we haven't touched that for a while. Future funding council workshop, I'll let you know what time that will be, October 1st. The comp plan obviously is in the future. And then do I have a volunteer for the September 17th council report?
My idea for that council report, because they don't have what I'm kind of used to, a traditional where we would present our budget to council, that maybe we should use that. I suppose, well, I guess we don't have to do the September meeting because the budget discussion, when did budget discussions start with council?
I believe, I have to look at the schedule. I believe it's the second October meeting that the mayor will present the preliminary budget.
So if we wanted to use one of our council reports to talk a little bit about 2025 and really focus on that, with maybe the October meeting would be the one to do that, where it would be fresher on their mind, or the September.
I think either one would be equally effective. If you're looking to have it closer to the actual budget review, I would do it on the 3rd of October, or I'm sorry, the 1st of October.
Oh,
Except we don't do our report. on
yeah,
the
we do our report on the other one.
second meeting.
So then it would be September
Would be-
17th, this coming one. Otherwise, it would be on the night of their review, first review.
Oh, okay, so maybe we use the September report to talk strictly about the budget and what our ideas are for projects, so that otherwise they only just read something on a piece of paper, and we could have some pictures, some wonderful slides. I don't know. What do you think? And does anyone have an interest in going and presenting, or?
I'm out. Can't do it. Otherwise, I would. Yeah, me too.
I can do it. I wouldn't love if somebody wants to co-do it with me and be involved, but I can definitely do this one.
I think I'm tentatively available if you want to partner.
Yeah. Even if you can, help get the slides, but
I
just
can
think-
absolutely do that.
Yeah.
I'm tentatively available to be in person though.
But I think if we focus on our 2025 plan.
Yeah.
Because that really covers what we've been talking about in this meeting anyway, for the most part. And anything else we can play catch up on, so I'll put myself down for 17.
Nancy, not to be a fly in the ointment, but yeah, would you want to consider pushing this report, the September report to October 1, or are you required to do it on the second meeting of the month?
I don't know.
We could skip, it's up to you. I mean, normally we have it on the 17th or on the second meeting, but I suppose we could rearrange it.
I cannot promise I can do the October
Oh,
1, because
right.
I'm at the mercy of an airplane.
Sure. I mean, it's a timing question, right? If you think it would be more effective to have the conversation closer to when they are going to first review the budget, I would suggest at least considering that. If you don't think it's that big of a deal, I would go on your regular schedule.
What do you guys think?
I feel like we've already hinted at all of our items in previous reports. I mean, that's the question I would defer to you if it's, I don't
honestly-
believe
yeah.
anything's going to be a surprise.
Yeah, I honestly don't think it's going to make a
No.
difference one way or the other. It's a comfort level for you all, really, is the
Well, let's just
question.
do it on the 17th. We can talk about our excitement for the next year, give them a glimpse of it, throw in a couple other things. I'll work with Laura on the slides and we'll just do that. Okay.
And then already mentioned the vacancy, still open, rec programming operating update. Mikkel, are you online?
Yeah, yes, I am. Can you hear me?
Yes, would you like to speak to that real quick?
Yeah, so real quick, so me and Jen have been looking at budgets for next year, and I budgeted just some random programs as kind of like placeholders to give us kind of a budget for next year. And so we put it in the budget and we're requesting for next year. And so then when kind of our next step, if that's all gets approved, is kind of work on next on public input, talking with David about how we can gauge what the community wants. And then once we start getting some public input for 2025 for different type of programs, then we can bring that to the Parks and Art Commission and then get your guys' input on that as well.
Are there any questions? This is very new and different for us, so. But our idea is to get public input and then bring some ideas to the commission for discussion and then moving forward with these programs.
Mhm. I mean, I personally would love to see some basketball clinics on our beautiful court mural and maybe some skate park safety stuff and I mean, showcasing some of the art while it's functional art for a reason to really use it. So I'm excited to hear what might come out of that.
Thank you, Mikkel.
Yeah, no problem.
Lastly, as we're going through budgets, we're looking at what needs to be fixed, what needs to be added and such for next year. This is the list of items that are fairly major in some capacity, either fund-wise or project-wise. Things that we're looking at adding or redoing or renovating to next year's parks. So I won't go through these in detail. If you do have questions, please don't hesitate to reach out and ask. They're fairly self-explanatory, so. That is all I have. Are there any questions?
No, thank you for your report. Also in your packet, Katie is not able to come today, but she wanted us to have the minutes from the Bike Pedestrian Safety Advisory Committee, and you'll see that on the last page of your packet. And I really appreciate Katie taking this on, and she's really got some great community involvement, and they're moving ahead with the regular monthly meetings. And I think last Monday of the month at New Love Coffee at 8:30. So if you ever have some time and you want to stop in, I think that there's a lot of energy with that. Okay, that concludes our regular agenda. Our next meeting is October 7. Anything else for the greater good from anyone? Motion to adjourn?
I so moved to adjourn the meeting.
Second.
Been moved and seconded, David and Bob, to adjourn the meeting. Assuming there's no discussion, all in favor? Opposed? All right, we're adjourned, and thank you so much.